Oh, right. Ah, good morning, Luma. Hey, has that Pokemon had any changes yet? No? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, the eyes and the mouth still do look remarkably like a Quagsire. Yeah, I've been up most of the night trying to think about it. I think I've got about 3 possibilities, ranging from past ancestors to almost mythical. That one might be a bit of a stretch. Maybe it's time I lay them all out, though. Rotom, let's fire up a stream. I need to get more minds on this. Kia ora, friends and field researchers. Hey, it's Professor Cody here. I need your guys' help on something. We found this bizarre Pokemon yesterday not far from our lab. It was a Wobbuffet that had a Quagsire's face. Very odd occurrence, haven't quite figured out why yet, but in trying to spend some time on it yesterday, it made me realize that despite the fact that I've been researching in Johto for decades, I only just realized that these two Pokemon share a similar shape and silhouette, similar colors, similar heights, both have large flat tails, their pre-evolutions look quite similar, and they even both like to live around water-based habitats, both above and below ground. Like I said, I got 3 theories that I think might link these two Pokemon together, and I need your guys' eyes on this to make sure I don't miss anything. Yesterday evening I reached out to Professor Elm to try and get some advice from him also, and is able to share some research with me. While nothing particularly of interest came up with Quagsire, Wooper or Wynot, there was some interesting information on Wobbuffet. From their research project Heart Gold, Wobbuffet hates light and shock. If attacked, it inflates its body to build up its counter-strike. And from research project Soul Silver, to keep its pitch black tail hidden, Wobbuffet lives quietly in the darkness and is never first to attack. I also reached out to Professor Birch and Hoenn just in case they had some extra information, and they were able to share this from their research project Alpha Sapphire. That Wobbuffet does nothing but endure attacks. It won't attack on its own. However, it won't endure an attack on its tail. When that happens, the Pokemon will try and take the foe down with it using Destiny Bond. Now, I've always considered Wobbuffet to be like a very strong and enduring type of Pokemon, a very brave Pokemon, but these are leading me to believe that it's probably actually a very scared and timid Pokemon. It's very self-defensive measures, and only under very strict circumstances will it lash out. This makes me think that the Pokemon actually evolved to be like this due to some sort of traumatic event that is effectively genetically burned into it. My first thoughts on this was that maybe these two Pokemon, Quagsire and Wobbuffet, are actually cousins, sharing a common ancestor. A Pokemon whose lineage split due to evolutionary and environmental strains. I imagine the first branch to have lived in safer areas, safer waters such as slower streams and marshes where there's fewer predators. And in this particular case, all of the important organs developed in the main part of the body, and their tail faded into becoming, well, just a tail, this line giving rise to Wooper and Quagsire. Whereas Branch 2 would have developed in a more hostile environment, where it hid all of its important organs down in its base and in its tail, leaving the top of the body as purely a rubbery defensive lure for attacks. This line would have developed into Wynot and Wobbuffet. So for this common ancestor, I present Wobbuffet, the decoy Pokemon, a water and psychic type. Once spread through most waterways, I imagine this Pokemon split into 2 distinct lines. This Pokemon began more of a defensive decoy first approach, but as it split, the Quagsire line lost the need for its psychic abilities, whereas Wobbuffet's psychic abilities strengthened to keep itself safe. However, if it's not this, maybe it's convergent evolution, where 2 completely different species evolve similar traits independently to adapt to similar environments or roles within their ecosystem. Examples of this are Wiglet, the sea-dwelling water-type Pokemon from Paldea, and the land-dwelling ground-type Diglett, which is found, well, practically everywhere. Wobbuffet and Quagsire could have also evolved to be similar due to both fulfilling similar niches. Slow, passive, amphibious adjacent Pokemon, occupying low conflict, low predator ecological roles, don't pose a threat, don't get eaten. I imagine this Pokemon would have had an incredibly different visual in comparison to the Pokemon of today. I picture it as a small reptilian Pokemon with a large tail. Many Pokemon and people may have found it very tasty, which would lead to a decline in population. When threatened, this Pokemon would lift its tail in the air and fill a special air pocket in its tail to inflate it, as a distraction or a decoy. Over time, those with larger tails lived longer, and Convergent Evolution brought it to the point Wobbuffet is today, a Pokemon with very few natural predators. So I present Tabbuffet, the tasty morsel Pokemon, a Psychic type. The name for this one is a combination of the English and the Japanese words for table, or teburu, and the alternative meaning for the word buffet being buffet, referring to a meal where the one eating helps themselves to as much as they wanted, as I imagine this Pokemon suffered from predation due to being incredibly tasty. However, if it wasn't Convergent Evolution, maybe we're looking at mimicry. A very common theory is that the tail of Wobbuffet, being from the fact that it has eyes on it, is the real body of Wobbuffet, and the blue body is actually a decoy. So in this particular case, what if mimicry comes into play? Because Pokemon mimicry isn't foreign. Wobbuffet may be a mimic species not unlike Mimikyu, who disguises itself as Pikachu to gain affection or to avoid people being scared of it. Or Zorua and Zorowalk, who use illusion for survival and trickery. I mean, even Sudowoodo tries to mimic trees. If Wobbuffet's true form is its tail, perhaps it's using mimicry of a less threatening species to hide in plain sight to avoid confrontation. In this case, Quagsire, being a non-aggressive and possibly overlooked Pokemon, makes the species perfect to duplicate. Before I go any further, there are some flaws to this possible theory. In Johto, Wobbuffet and Quagsire don't coexist in any of the same routes. Quagsire live in a bunch of routes and areas as marked on this map, whereas Wobbuffet live in these areas, particularly in Cerulean Cave and Dark Cave. Because of this, they can't easily observe each other, making real-time mimicry evolution unlikely in this region. In Galar, they are both found at the Lake of Outrage, but Quagsire only appears during rain and Wobbuffet only appears during fog, so they're still almost always separated, making direct imitation difficult even there. Other various theories I've seen around Wobbuffet refer to its tail. Wobbuffet's tail, and most notably Wynot's tail, look very similar to Unown. And I've seen several explanations on this, but here's my take. Unown and Johto are found at the ruins of Alph. And do you know who lives in the water outside of the ruins of Alph? Wooper and Quagsire. So imagine, if you will, an Unown that's been severely injured. In a final attempt to survive, it tries to transform into another Pokemon, and directly outside of the ruins of Alph, it encounters Quagsire, enjoying life unbothered by anything around them. So this Unown tries to use the last of its world-bending power to mimic a Quagsire, with a faltering level of success. I'm calling this possibility Wobnown, a Psychic type. It's not too dissimilar from Quagsire, but enough that it still looks like a weaker version to be preyed upon. Because of this, Wobnown flees to more remote caves to hide, becoming a brand new species over time as it perfects its disguise into the Wobbuffet we know today, living just far enough away for other Pokemon to think it's a Quagsire, and to leave it alone. I'm keen to hear your guys' thoughts on these possibilities, so make sure you let me know in the comments. Hey, is there anything... Oh. Hello? Ah, hi Duplica. What can I help you with? No, I haven't seen any Ditto to... Still has a Ditto face. Oh, really? Well, Arceus,